newest movie in the Rocky franchise and the third installment in Adonis Creed's spin-off of Rocky movies. In this movie, Adonis Creed has recently retired from boxing. He's gotten more into the promoting and the recruiting side of boxing, just living his life with Bianca and their daughter Amara. On the way, though, he runs into an old friend and former boxing protege, Damian Anderson, played by Jonathan Majors. He's fresh out of doing 18 years in prison. He really wants to get a shot at boxing like he once thought he was going to get. Adonis Creed decides to pull some strings for him. But once Damian gets his shot, he starts showing a really bad side of him that really puts him and Adonis Creed at odds with each other. And soon enough it reaches a point Creed decides, you know what, the only way to settle this is in the ring, we gotta fight. The Rocky franchise is by far and away the greatest sports movie franchise of all time. Nothing's close to it. Nothing will ever come close to it. The original Rocky movie, it's one of the greatest movies ever made. It is the greatest sports movie ever made. It's probably the greatest underdog story ever, and Rocky Balboa, one of the greatest movie characters ever. It's absolutely timeless. It is the definition of a classic. Then we got some Rocky sequels, and I will say, having recently watched most of the Rocky sequels, I think it's general consensus, most of them, you can find some enjoyment in them. Some a lot, some maybe less than others, but they are sequels that you can have a good time with. And then in 2015, we got the first Creed. I call it the Rocky of this generation. I think it's one of the best sports movies ever made. Not as good as Rocky, granted what is, but I love everything about it. I absolutely love the character Adonis Creed. I love the relationship he developed with Rocky. I like seeing Rocky go into this trainer kind of role. It had heart, it had spirit, and it absolutely 100% resurrected the Rocky franchise for a new generation of movie lovers. Since that's been following the Rocky formula, we're getting some new Creed sequels. We're now on the third one, and the first one to be directed by Michael B. Jordan. I will say this much though, I wasn't super excited going into this movie. My big fear was the Creed franchise going to get milked? Because somehow I alluded to earlier, once we got to around Rocky 5, that's when a lot of people were like, okay, now the franchise has kind of just lost its touch a little bit. It's just, we've run out of it. Running out of ideas, you don't feel like the passion's really there anymore. Like, they just didn't really feel like what they once felt like. I was kind of afraid Creed was going to be that. And I thought Creed 3 was going to be that because I really felt that Creed 1 and Creed 2 was just a great two-story arc for Adonis Creed's character. I was kind of sitting there, I'm like, okay, where else do we go from here? But hey, you know what? I've been wrong before, and I'm wrong once again here. Creed 3, actually a pretty damn good movie. First of all, I really like seeing this side of Adonis Creed. You see him a lot more as a family man in this one. You see him a lot more involved in the business side of boxing, which I thought was really cool. Just because he's done boxing doesn't mean the sport is dead to him or anything like that. He still wants to be involved. He wants to give upcoming fighters their own shots. You just see a really mature, level-headed Adonis Creed in this one. And I really like seeing that. It's, reflective on just how much he's grown up in what is now his third movie. I really love Bianca's storyline in this movie and kind of seeing the struggles she's had to deal with in previous movies and how she's kind of, using her musical skill set to further her own career in her own special way. And also seeing how the two are being parents to their deaf daughter, which, was, touched on in Creed 2. I like seeing that aspect. It showed a real strong family unit in this Creed movie. Also, I'm going to say this right now. I thought Michael B. Jordan in his directorial debut, I thought he did a really good job here. You definitely feel a sense of style from him, and I really liked that. Namely, I want to talk about in the fighting sequence. Michael B. Jordan has said that he is a very big anime fan, and you feel a lot of anime elements in Creed 3, namely in the fighting sequences. There are certain shots that people take, there are certain hits that people deliver, the way the fighting scenes are done, the way they're filmed, and the way people are just scrapping with each other. It really does feel like something straight out of anime. There are certain shots in particular, you'll know them when you see them if you ever grew up watching Dragon Ball Z or something like that. You're gonna be like, that's straight out of the show, and I love that. Similar to how I said how I loved in the first Creed, a lot of fights were filmed as one continuous take. This one brought another new flair to, the fighting scenes, as in, it looks like it's straight out of anime. And it looks awesome for the movie. I mean, a little unrealistic, maybe, but it works. It's entertaining and it's awesome. And yeah, I obviously have to touch on Jonathan Majors as Damian Anderson, because holy shit, I gotta say this right now, between Quantumania and now this, where the hell has Jonathan Majors been this whole time? I mean, this guy plays an amazing antagonist. But not just a great antagonist, he plays an unbelievable character. I really liked the character of Damian Anderson. When you first meet him, he's down on his luck. He just got out of prison. He's like, I still got miles in the tank. I can still do it. I can still show the world that I'm capable of being a great boxer. But you feel like, the journey to get there, it's like he's been gone for so long. He's not on his prime anymore. It's like, could he really still do it? And part of you really wants to see him do it. And, Adonis Creed kind of wants to see his old friend do it. I really love the exploration on their friendship, too. I mean, you really see how far back they go, what, both their upbringings were kind of like, the things they went through together, how much they both loved boxing, and kind of like how boxing was perceived by both of them. At least in some ways, maybe the trajectories, both of their careers or aspirations, if you will, were supposed to go. But the thing that intrigued me most about Damian Anderson's character was really the dynamic he had with Adonis Creed. Because, yes, they have this friendship, but in a lot of ways, similar to anime, I'm going to reference Dragon Ball Z once again, it felt a lot like the dynamic between Goku and Vegeta. Damian Anderson in a lot of ways feels like Vegeta in this sense. Damian Anderson was growing up thinking I was supposed to be that guy. I was a boxing prodigy. I was that name. Everyone knew who I was. Everyone knew how good I was as a fighter. I was supposed to be the one to become the new legend. I was supposed to be the next Apollo Creed. I was supposed to be the next Rocky Balboa. And then I got absolutely fucked over. I had to spend 18 years in prison, and I had to watch you, Adonis Creed, live my life and take my honor and take my legacy. And like Vegeta, it causes him to have some very dark personality traits and makes him do some kind of bad things to get where he wants to be. But in a lot of ways, you hear what he says, you hear his pain, you hear how he suffered, and you understand it to a degree. He feels like Adonis Creed has lived out his dream, and he's sitting there if what happened to me hadn't happened to me, I'd be in your shoes. And in Creed's case, he's like, look, what happened to you sucks, but I worked to become a great fighter. I met with Rocky. Rocky trained me. He made me who I am today, and I've become the man I am today. And I have this success because I worked my ass off, and I beat the best fighters in the business. I do like seeing the fact that Creed believes in some ways he has become a monster that I created, so I have to stop him. And along the way, another great training montage. And I will say, the final fight between Creed and Damian, it is awesome. Because in this final fight, unlike the other ones where you're kind of watching it as a spectator, a little bit in that sense, in this one you really see the fight from their perspectives. This easily feels like the most personal fight that Creed has had in this trilogy, and it feels very heavy when it goes down. If there are flaws I have with this movie, I will say this. Sylvester Stallone is not in this movie as Rocky, which feels very weird because, this is still technically in the Rocky universe, so why isn't Rocky in here? I think some sort of, contract situation fell through, so he didn't end up being in it. And I will say, do I miss him? Absolutely. It's impossible not to. It's Rocky. And there are definitely certain points in this movie where you feel like, man, if Rocky was here, he would have known exactly what to do. Donnie could have really used him in this moment. But I totally get what the movie wants to do at this point. It wants it to become, basically Creed's story now. It's now he's grown from needing Rocky. Now he can just be his own man. I do get that, but would I like to see him? Of course. Also, I will say at this point, similar to how the Rocky movies got very formulaic as they went along, the Creed movies are starting to as well. Creed discovers a new adversary, he wants to fight him, maybe doesn't feel ready to, has his training montage, and then the fight happens. It's a little bit predictable, similar to how Creed 2 felt predictable, because it's just become formulaic at this point. But that being said, you don't really mind too much that it is formulaic, because frankly, the Rocky movies were always formulaic, and everyone always enjoyed them. And I think in that sense, you do as well here too. So all in all, Creed 3 is another very worthy entry into the Rocky franchise. Michael B. Jordan was once again great as Adonis Creed. I loved seeing his storyline in this movie. I really thought Michael B. Jordan killed it as a director here. Damian Anderson, I think, is the best antagonist we've gotten in these Creed movies. I think he's easily the most memorable enemy that Creed has had to face in the ring. I love the style of these fight scenes. I love that it felt like anime fight scenes. I thought it worked great for the movie. I was really entertained by it. It's a formulaic story, and I do miss Rocky, but the story itself, it does work here in pretty much every way that it needs to. In the end, I was worried that we were milking the franchise. At this point, I'm okay if they want to continue this Creed franchise. I hope it doesn't get run into the ground, but you know what? I had a really good time with this movie, and I'm not opposed to seeing more. So that's all I got to say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. And as always, don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.